Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and welcome to our podcast in which we delve deep into the bowels of horror from all different decades and all different subgenres. We try and give you a really good outlook on the stuff that's out there that you may have missed, stuff that you may have seen once, but probably haven't seen more than once. And you need a refresher course, or just generally talking about films and different subject matter that has to deal with the horror genre in general. What I do is I'm usually the main host, but then again, I invite someone out here, a special guest, to help me discuss the film.
What's up?
That was Dave Watkins. He's a frequent guest on the show. Thank you, Dave, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be back on here. Like always.
Yeah. Well, we're always glad to have you, especially when we're talking about an 80s horror film, because everyone who guests on our show usually are very big fans of the 80s horror films. And the one we're discussing today is a very popular one from the 80s, and it's a vampire film. Now, unfortunately for you guys, you're thinking it's The Lost Boys. It's not The Lost Boys. We've already done that one. So if you haven't listened to our conversation from last year, go check out a previous episode on The Lost Boys. What we're talking about tonight is the quintessential vampire film of the 80s, Fright Night, from director Tom Holland. All right.
It's a 1985 film, Fright Night.
Oh my God, the 80s. I don't know. I don't know if I saw this when it actually came out. I remember seeing it on HBO late at night, and I did a weird double feature with this film and Creepshow. Fright Night was cool. Creepshow scared the shit out of me as a kid.
That's I think I saw it on HBO too. I didn't do a double with Creepshow with it. I don't remember what I think I just watched it by itself, but it was I'm pretty sure it was HBO. I definitely didn't see it before that. So
well, HBO back then was like the go-to for all the great movies.
Oh yeah. Right, yeah.
I was always watching HBO back then.
Yeah.
And this film, do you actually remember when you saw it, or what your impressions of this film when you first saw it?
And two, I think I may have seen this. It may not even been HBO. It may have been like on regular television and with commercials. I can't remember like the first time I saw it, but this film I've always thought it was a lot of fun. I always enjoyed it. I think it's a good mix of genres in it, especially when it comes to some comedy. But it takes itself pretty serious, but it does have a sense of humor to it. But and it makes you care about the characters. And I think the characters too are supposed to be, I guess, in high school or something, but they're definitely older than that. At the same time, the first time I saw it, I kind of like related to the characters because I think I was about that age, so I related to that and just the and it does the special effects in this thing. The practical special effects are amazing, and the performances, especially by like Roddy McDowall and Chris Sarandon, are really good.
Mm-hmm. So
it also has two actors from shows I was watching at the time, like Married with Children, Amanda Burse, and William Ragsdale, who was in Herman's Head. So
yeah, I know. I watched both of those too. So
yeah.
Like, oh,
right. So it was like a weird to see those TV, which I mean I was considering TV actors were in like a horror movie, so that was a cool thing to see.
You know what? I don't know what I saw first, the shows or the movie, because I don't think I watched this when it came out. Like I said, I saw it on HBO, right. And the lead time between a movie that goes theatrical to the time it actually makes it to HBO was very long back in those days.
Yeah, it was a really long back then. That was the cool thing though about HBO and when VHSs came out is they had movies that people would probably never watch again that suddenly they were putting on and everybody knew about those movies.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more like I guess the VHS thing started at people seeing those covers. I remember the cover to this is really awesome. It kind of reminds me of the Return of the Living Dead 2 cover, which was also awesome, but it's got that kind of vampire thing in the clouds and a bunch of little serpent things over a house. It was a very, very striking cover, and I remember seeing that at the video store a lot of times.
Yeah.
I
Well,
may have even rented it the first. I really can't remember how I watched it the first time, but I know I've seen it lots of times. So I've probably seen it a good 10 times or something. You know.
I probably have seen it way more than 10 times. This was one of those films I watched a lot as a kid, kind of like The Lost Boys. And this is when I actually liked vampire movies. At some point, I stopped watching vampire movies altogether, but this and The Lost Boys kind of stayed in the background for a long time for me. I kept watching them. I was a huge fan of Fright Night. I even read all the comic book that came out and all that type of stuff as much as I could.
Right, right.
um, but that's the thing. This is not only like a horror film because there are some horrifying moments in it, but it has that sense of humor. And because of the characters being high school, despite the fact that they obviously look like they're older than high school,
I did get the ages. Like William Ragsdale was 24 and Amanda Burst was 27 in it. But so they kind of, but they. I guess the good thing about getting an actor like that age, a lot of times they've got some stuff. They've already been working on a lot more things than maybe somebody younger. Even though sometimes you do see good performances by younger people, but at least they have a little bit of experience before, especially if they're having to carry the film. You know.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times it has to deal with child labor laws and they're trying to get people who are under the age of 18. They're limited on how much time they could be on set.
Right.
Day, getting the 20-something-year-olds, they're perfectly fine with. So,
yeah, it's a lot easier, a lot cheaper too. So you have to like break the days up.
So, I am under the impression that a lot of people have already seen this film. So I'm gonna try and delve into some of the questions about this film, or reason why we love it, why we hate it, why we do all this other crazy stuff like that. So one of the things I want to touch upon is why we think this film is so effective as a vampire film.
Yeah. So I think especially the last half of the film, I think there's a big difference between the first half of the film and the second half, where the first half is very almost Alfred Hitchcock like, where it goes into like a kind of rear window situation where this kid and he's in there making out with his girlfriend, and he talks her into having sex, and suddenly he looks out the window and I guess she hasn't been wanting to have sex. Suddenly she's good with it, and he looks out the window, he sees these guys carrying a coffin. That's a really striking image to me. I know I've seen this in other films after this. This may be the first time this kind of happened, but very rear window from Alfred Hitchcock sort of thing, where you just see something real crazy going on outside. And this movie reminds me a lot of Salem's Lot, the second half of the film a lot. But
okay, I didn't think of it, yeah.
Especially like when they go into the house at the end and they fight the vampires. It's which I think is awesome in Salem's Lot. It's also really high point of this film. But the whole getting from the beginning to that part, it works really well in this film. And I do like then they have like the horror host played by Roddy McDowall on the TV, which is something I think no, like people like younger people now don't understand that. I don't think, because it was such a cool thing back then. I guess we were kind of at the end of it, but they had some like it was like they still had TV stuff, and then they had like hosts like USA Up All Night and
horror
Bob Biggs and a bunch of horror hosts like Elvira, who were, and it was a cool thing. And here you have a kind of has been, or he. According to Roddy McDowall, his character never had been. He'd probably been in some really bad movies, and he kind of was these vampire staking movies. He was a vampire hunter, and it's an interesting thing the way they have like an actor who was played a vampire hunter, and then they go to him for help, and he doesn't realize that there's real vampires, and he thinks it's just an acting gig, which is a great thing. And Roddy McDowall's so great in that character, and he said he when he read the script, he wanted to play it kind of like the cowardly lion from the Wizard of Oz, and that he comes in and he's a little flamboyant too, which is great, even when he's playing the vampire hunter on TV. But then he comes in, and then once he realizes that there's really vampires, then he really freaks out and tries to get out of there. But then it's interesting, someone that's scared, and then he eventually he eventually comes back and has a he eventually comes back and starts to actually hunt vampires.
Yeah. Well, you say that, and I'm going to jump to the scene that I think I noticed the most of on my recent rewatch of this film and it's the one part that kind of prompts him to at the very end. Uh,
Yeah.
they confront Jerry Dandridge, him and Charlie confront Jerry Dandridge, and of course Charlie gets knocked out, and the next thing you see is Roddy McDowell running away, scared, because that's
Yeah.
pretty much how he's been for most of the film because he can't believe there's real vampires. But when he goes next door to Charlie's house to look for his mother of all people,
Yeah.
he encounters Evil Ed, who's now a vampire, which he's already encountered earlier in the film. But when he accidentally kills Evil Ed, there is a very long sequence where he is watching Evil Ed die, and he's crying, and he can't believe that this innocent person who he got to know before he got turned into a vampire is slowly dying in front of his eyes. And of course, the thing that did it for me is when he takes the wooden stake, the accidental wooden stake, because it came from the nightstand. He fell over.
Right.
He fell over.
Yeah.
He pulls it out, and that's his weapon of choice when he goes back over to Jerry Dandridge's house, because he's got a renewed sense of vigor, and he's now taking his role as a vampire hunter seriously for the first time in the film. And you see it in Roddy McDowell's face because he's such a great actor.
Well, I think was you brought this point up too with the expressions and just the expressions of him not necessarily enjoying it. I mean, he definitely has that compassion look of kind of like he feels that this is still a kind of could be a person, but they have to be killed. So it's just that look of not in a, of just feeling for that person. It is quite expressive look. And that Evil Ed character is it played by Stephen Jeffries. What'd you think about that character?
So I unfortunately have a little bit more a kinship to the way Charlie Brewster and Evil Ed are portrayed, because I always felt like the Evil Ed character growing up, the guy who had a nickname that I hated. I had a nickname growing up that I hated, that my friends gave me, and they would always call me that freaking nickname, even though I hated it.
Yeah. They didn't call you Evil Ed, did they?
No, they didn't call me Evil Ed.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. So yeah, you felt that.
I'll tell you. The thing is, growing up in Georgia, when I told my friends that I came from Alaska, they had no reference for Alaska. Their ideal of what Alaska was the first thing was a yak. I'm like, yaks don't live in Alaska; they live in Tibet. That's not even the same. Yeah. So my nickname growing up here in Georgia was always Yak, and I hated that. I was like, dude, that's not
right. Yeah, it don't sound right. It don't sound too good, but
it doesn't. Yeah. So it was always weird. So I always had this kinship with Evil Ed, and of course, Jerry Dandridge is one of the quintessential seducing vampires, and I kind of finally picked up on it as I'm older. Of course, because of course he seduces Amy. In the dance sequence, and he seduces Ed in the alleyway. Like, Ed gives himself to him because Jerry Dandridge plays on the fact that he's being bullied by his own friends and school people and everything like that. And if he goes with Jerry Dandridge, he won't be bullied anymore. And then, of course, Jeffries plays it brilliantly, because when he becomes a vampire, he's no longer like this scared little character who's going to take anything from everyone. He's going to go after the vampire hunter. Essentially, his two big scenes are going after Peter Vincent.
Right. I think that's what's really interesting about the performance and the character is when you first see him, it's like he does it in such an odd way. He's acting really weird, and I think most of the way he's acting is a performance by the character, because when you see him get chased by the vampire and that real look of fear on his face, he completely becomes the way the character really is in real life, and he loses that pretend shell of trying to be a weird guy for a moment, and then he becomes seduced, and then but it's a very interesting kind of really good performance. But at first it's kind of like something's really wrong with this guy, but once you see his full performance for those three parts of the film, like really odd, weird acting, and then the getting chase more than anything, and then the way he acts as a vampire is a very interesting performance.
Well, yeah, no, I agree with you because the scene where Charlie Brewster comes up to him for the very first time at his house and he's asking him what did he do about vampires. It's kind of like the first scene where the Ed character gets to actually be useful in terms of the person he calls
Right.
his friend.
And
Because
yeah, and too in that scene though, that he acts more normal in that scene
uh-huh,
than he does in the other scenes when he's around other people, because it's
uh-huh.
just him and Charlie. So he's not trying to put on an act for anybody else.
Yep. Yeah, no, no, I saw that too. I was like, oh, because, and like I said, it's been we already kind of hinted on it. I think the last time I saw this was 2011 when around the remake came out. So it's been over a decade since I've seen the film. But I grew up watching it a lot, but I've never actually watched this film to watch it critically. That's the great thing of rewatching films with
Yeah.
so many years in between it. When I was a kid, I wasn't watching any of these films critically. I was watching them for entertainment value, which
Right.
is extremely entertaining. But when I rewatched it for our podcast, I had to think of it as a more critical film, and I see things I didn't see before.
The one thing about looking at this film critically is some parts don't necessarily hold up that well if you think about it too critically. Because some things that happen are just like, why did that happen? I think especially earlier on, it's like there's just a few instances where, say, for like, I guess the most, this is something critical. Okay,
Yes, yes.
I don't
Okay.
necessarily want. I mean, again, you can watch this and not. You just have to not care about this. But so the vampire moves in next door, which is kind of what happens even in Dracula. Dracula moves in next door. Buys that house and moves in next door. But really everything is kind of Dracula in a way. It's just a modernized version of it, a little bit simpler. But so he moves in next door, and so what does the vampire do? He invites prostitutes over, and then he kills them. And then Charlie Brewster starts seeing the prostitutes. People like Charlie sees them actually bring these prostitutes into the house, and then they die, and then they're on the news. The police are finding these dead bodies, and then so he's got a witness seeing these. And like, if you would think if you're a prostitute, you probably have a pimp, and the prostitute's going to be like, "Hey, I'm going over to this house," and the pimp's going to be like, "What house did they go to?" And they would go to the last house they went to, or whatnot. So it's very risky for the vampire to bring the actual prostitutes back to his house and eat them there. He should take them somewhere else where he wouldn't get caught, or they couldn't trace it back to, as if he wanted to stay in the house. But that's just a critical thing. I mean, yeah. But if you think about it, like, you would want to stay in the house because after all the trouble, and you're an old vampire. I don't know how old he is, but he's an old vampire, and you'd think that you'd get tired of having to move around all the time. It's very dangerous to be out in the daylight, so you would want to not attract attention, and you wouldn't want anybody to be able to trace you back to the house. I don't know. You see what I'm saying there, right?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah. No, no, no. That's part of the allure of, and I think that's more in the theme of the sexual theme in the film because it starts off with the very beginning of the film with the Charlie and Amy character try and make out, but Amy's a little apprehensive of going further than just making out. Of course, throughout the whole film, it's a tension between them because she tries to apologize to him, and then every time he turns around, he's paying more attention to something else than her. And then,
Right.
of course, the big seduction sequence between Amy and Jerry Dandridge on the dance floor, which as a grown up now, it's an amazing sequence. When I was a kid,
Yeah.
I was always bored of that sequence because
Yeah. I felt the same
down.
way. I felt the same way. I was like, can we get through this thing already? The dance thing. I felt the same way, but it also, like, now watching it, I felt differently about it, like you did. I think it was something I didn't want to accept younger when you're watching the film, is that the guy's girlfriend, you want her to side with the main character,
Mm-hmm.
but here she's being seduced by a vampire, it's a very great performance by Amanda Burst here, especially like in from there until the end of the film once she
Mm-hmm.
becomes a vampire, because you see her change in that scene
Yep.
when he's dancing with her, and you see like the expression on her face is it's a really great performance, and you see her as always picture like Marcy, was it Marcy Darcy and then Married with Children, but she does do a good performance here. When then later on, it's weird after she turns into a vampire, her hair's suddenly long and she looks completely different, but she looks a lot better with the long hair.
Yeah, I noticed that too for the first time. I was like, oh wait, did her hair just grow long because she became a vampire? What's up with that?
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
think I
But I
ever
think it,
noticed
yeah,
when I
it's
was
a little
young.
bit, yeah. Right. And that was, I think, like too, like we didn't connect with that part because I figured I wanted her to be saved by the other guy, and I didn't want her to go too far into being a vampire. So that kind of darkness, I wasn't prepared for it, and it actually they do save her, but yeah, but it's I think a lot of it was not wanting to see that. It was kind of a something that you didn't necessarily want to see, especially when you're younger like that. But seeing the prostitutes without their clothes on is a different story. It's
Well, the thing is, the very first person that we don't see killed is a male character. I forgot and I only noticed that this last time, and I can't remember what he did. Uh, he's mentioned in the report that the first victim
uh,
is a male character, but the other two are definitely the female characters because they
it
show
does,
up in the house.
right, and it doesn't show, and there is some like homosexual overtones to it, but they try to back away from it because they don't want to alienate, especially that audience from that time. They definitely didn't want to alienate the audience, but with that, like I didn't notice that, but that's definitely something that this vampire is seductive to both men and women, even though they kind of when he does it to Evil Ed, they kind of downplay it and try to make it not that sexual, but it definitely is there. Even when he's attacking um Charlie in his room, there is some kind of overtones to that as well,
Yeah, yeah.
which that's actually a really good scene that he comes in. It was what's interesting about the vampire. What was the vampire's name? It's
Very dangerous.
Jerry Dandridge. Yeah. What's interesting about the vampire is he comes in and he tries to talk him. He doesn't come in to kill him. He's like, hey, I want you to just forget about what I'm doing
Yes.
over there and look the other way. And we got a deal. He's going to make a deal with him, and then he's like, instead of making a deal with him, which would have been the smart thing to do, he tries to get the crucifix out, and it doesn't
Yeah.
work.
I didn't notice that until I rewatched it too. I was like, oh wait, Jay Dandridge actually tries to just tell him to forget everything. Like he's
Yeah,
apprehensive of killing a kid. I was like, oh, I didn't notice that before.
I don't even know if he was apprehensive about killing him. I mean, that may have been it, but to me, yeah, what I was saying before, it's like a move for a vampire. If you're living next door to somebody, you need to be able to get along with them. And if you start killing your neighbors, you're going to have to move.
When you put it in that perspective, you're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
But I don't know if that's what but I don't know if that's what they were going with. But if I just think about things like that now when I'm thinking about horror movies. Sometimes I mean, obviously you got the plot to contend with, and when you're younger, you watch these films, you just want to see the vampires in action. But
Yeah.
if you think about, sometimes you guys think about these guys need to be a little bit smarter, and then they won't have as many problems. But you're going to have a problem though. Even if you are being smart, it's eventually going to catch back up with you. But I mean, a lot of times in these films, they do the things that they do just to make the film get to the violent parts quicker,
Yeah.
because otherwise it would be a really drug out plot thing. But it's like I would like to see a little bit more thought behind some of the what these monsters are doing, and when they move to a new town, because it's a lot of trouble to move, and it's like, you don't want to immediately like have to move again, or most of the time what happens is that they get killed by the protagonist.
Well, you actually bring up a very interesting point because when we go into Jerry Dandridge's house and you see him unpacking stuff that looks very expensive and very old, like the one, I think it's a tusk,
Right.
a horn that he
Yeah,
put,
yeah, yeah.
he's polishing it. And then, of course, when you see the stuff in the basement, there's tons of stuff that, like, they've been moving around and bringing all this stuff with them everywhere. You think that they would try not to be killing people anywhere near their house.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was saying about the prostitutes. I mean, the prostitutes make sense, but like, go to a hotel or something. You know what I'm saying? It's, or I don't know what kind of. They've got some powers here. This vampire, Jerry Dandridge can turn into a bat,
Mm-hmm.
and when
And smoke.
yeah, and smoke, and the Evil Ed turns into a wolf for some reason, but like Dracula turns into a wolf too, and bats. So it's like maybe they both have the same powers, or they can develop them.
So you bring up one other thing I wanted to talk about, which is in this film, pretty much they stick to your standard vampire lore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty much for this entire film, which is one of the reasons why I've always enjoyed this film. Even though I'm not a big vampire fan now, this was one of the films back then that stuck to vampire lore.
Right, yeah, and it's what's interesting is like they actually have a conversation about that. Like Roddy McDowall's character, he says because he's a vampire hunter, and so he's familiar with all that stuff. Of course, he's a vampire hunter on TV, so he's familiar with all. He's like, and so far, he's like everything I've seen seems to follow the vampire lore that was established in the vampire movies I've been in. But it's kind of established that through up until that time with Dracula predominantly but some of the stuff was added over time, and around, I guess eventually in the 70s they started kind of changing some of it because people are kind of getting, I guess, bored with the actual vampire myths. But I do like the way they kept like the vampire can't go out at night. He's can be stake the vampire, kills him.
Also you got to keep in mind that that even in the Fright Night Part 2, when Charlie and his girlfriend in that movie, I don't remember her name, they have a conversation about Dracula, the Bram Stoker's Dracula book, and of course that book helps her defeat one of the characters in the movie later on. So a lot of what Charlie learns, other than from Evil Ed and Dr. Peter, or just Peter Vincent, is traditional vampire lore, which is really interesting because everybody nowadays is trying to break with the traditions and trying to come up with something new, while this film kind of revels in that. Even I can't remember what year Near Dark came out anymore, because it's been a long time since I've seen Near Dark. But Near Dark,
it came out after Aliens, because they made it after the Aliens. The actors, two of the actors from that were in it, but
Near Dark came out same year as Lost Boys. But the thing is, that one is like the most non-traditional vampires you can ever hear. 87, I think it is.
87. So it was only 2 years after this.
So that one is trying to don't pay any attention to what you think you know about vampires. We're completely different. This one kind of lives by the traditional rules, and it plays in with the Peter Vincent character, who is a vampire hunter in these old movies that are cheesy. I mean, I want to say that the movie that they showed at the very beginning with Peter Vincent, he's going to stake the vampire, and of course, if you notice closely, the stake's backwards. Which I've always noticed and always thought was hilarious. I was like, you're staking the person with the stake backwards. But hey, it works in these cheesy movies that Peter Vincent's in.
Right. That's I'm sure that was intentional.
Oh no, that's most definitely intentional. Yeah, they're supposed to be cheesy vampire movies.
Yeah,
I always laugh.
Yeah, I think another it was an interesting thing for Roddy McDowall to do, because he plays like a character who's 30 years younger. I guess he's in his 30s there, and then he's around 60. He actually made him look older than he really was at the time in the film, because he didn't have like white hair like that in real life. No. It was kind of graying, but it still had a lot of brown in it. And so it was like, a lot of makeup on him.
There is a lot of I don't know. I don't remember seeing this when I was a kid, but when I watched it, he is under a lot of makeup.
Yeah.
Like I don't even think it was good makeup.
Nah. Yeah, it actually makes him look pretty sick looking. Yeah. Some really good makeup is like Max von Sydow in The Exorcist. Now I really thought he was that old. I thought he was that old for like 30 years, It's like
but no, I noticed that too. For the first time, I was like, wow, he looks like they just threw a bunch of white powder all over him. And
he looks really white. And I watched it in 4K, and he looks even more white. Oh, really? Yeah. but it does. I mean, another vampire thing is the no reflection. They play on the no reflection too, which is a great scene when Peter Vincent discovers that he's really a vampire, because he's got that trick mirror prop. What's funny is like all the things Peter Vincent uses are his props that he kept, which is awesome. But he has the mirror prop, and he doesn't believe he's a vampire, but something makes him open the mirror up and look at it, and then he sees he doesn't have a reflection, and then drops the mirror, which is such an awesome scene. It's kind of that same thing happens in Dracula, in the Bela Lugosi Dracula, like the mirror drop like that and break it on the floor.
Yep.
And then I think Chris Sarandon as the vampire though does a really good job. I
It's
think
such.
that
Go
yeah,
ahead.
and I it was like that's a character that I don't think I was really paying that much attention to before. And he's in it a lot. He gets top billing, but he like really I think I was more paying attention to the other characters. But like a lot of times it's just a miscellaneous vampire. But he puts some layers to the vampire, and I really like the way like especially what we're talking about earlier when he gives him an opportunity not to get eaten, but
Mhm.
just the looks that he does, and he tries to. There's a little bit of humor going on too with him and his sidekick, the kind of type of Renfield type of character that he has with
Billy,
him.
Billy,
Yeah,
Billy, yeah.
there's like it's some good back and forth between those guys, but
Uh, it's funny because Jerry Dandridge is like, oh, I want to kill somebody every day because I have to feed,
yeah,
but I follow the rules. Like he gets invited over to Charlie's house by his mother, and he takes
yeah,
her up on that invitation. Like he's a powerful vampire. He doesn't have to, but he's playing with them. Like
right. Well, I guess he can't get into the house. I mean, he could kill him outside of the house easily, but he could just get him outside. But like, yeah, but so he's definitely. It's great when he comes in to the house and he's sitting in the chair backwards, so you don't see who it is, and he turns around and looks at him.
well,
It's
Well, it goes into the thing that he doesn't kill people unless he has to. He doesn't when he goes into the house the to get after Charlie, he locks the mother up in her bedroom. Like he
right,
doesn't
right,
just go and kill her and then go after Charlie. Uh
yeah,
and then of course um was it like he gives Evil Ed a chance. And then and then when was Evil Ed calls him to try and set up the fake vampires test, he just goes ahead and says, "Yeah, we'll do this. It's fun. Like
yeah, yeah,
fun with these people. Like he could kill them
right,
if he wanted to, but he's having fun."
right, yeah, yeah. He does seem to, and it makes the character fun. It's fun to watch, and
Yeah.
I like the way, and then he gets at the end. He has a lot of makeup on when I like when he gets really mad because he's trying to like not to get mad, and then something happens that makes him mad, like somebody getting killed or him getting stabbed in the hand with a pencil, and
Uh-huh.
he just completely does this pretty great like physical like make practical makeup transformation. It's like about three different process, three different layers to that makeup it shows. And the way it's done in the scenes, like one shot will be part of the makeup, and then
Mhm.
you see the next shot, like it cuts to something else and comes back to him. And it's pretty, that was probably fairly time consuming shooting that scene, like scenes like that, because it would take probably a good hour to do each one of those different makeup steps. The same thing with Evil Ed and in
Yeah.
the part where where Roddy McDowall's character is like puts the crucifix to his forehead and it burns it into his forehead that he's always got after that. In the comic book, does he still have that on his forehead, like the
Depends on which
crucifix?
version you read. There was an old version of the Fright Night comic book back in the day when the part two came out by Now Comics.
Yeah,
Evil Ed character comes back, and I can't remember because it's been like what? How old is this movie? 85.
yeah,
So we're
85.
thinking
Yeah,
30 years ago. But Tom Holland, who directed and wrote this, is recently revamped Fright Night and just put out a new sequel, a direct sequel to the first movie through American Mythology Comics. And
okay,
Evil Ed is now a badass vampire because Jerry Dandridge is dead and he doesn't have a master that he has to follow. Uh,
yeah,
I'm interested because Tom Holland is approving the new comic, so hopefully they'll keep going with it because Evil
yeah,
Ed makes for a very interesting character when he has his own biker gang of vampire
yeah.
followers with him. Um,
Right, yeah,
but the comic book in the now version, they didn't have him for very long. He's like like a 2-part story, and then he kind of disappears from what I remember.
yeah.
And that lasted for several years before it was canceled, like 3 or 4 years before it was canceled. But it's completely forgotten. now,
Right.
comics, now comics also did Married with Children comic book, among others. They bought licenses to a lot of stuff. Twilight Zone and lots of horror properties back in the day, but it
So
didn't last
yeah,
long. I think they had like a. But the thing is, the Evil Ed character is a popular character, not just because of Jeffries, but also because of the way it was handled by Tom Holland in the film in here and the makeup. He's a very
yeah,
sympathetic character, surprisingly,
right.
as they all are in this movie, to be
Yeah,
honest with you, except for probably Billy.
yeah. Well, he's pretty hilarious though. And apparently, I was listening to an interview with the actor who plays him, and apparently they had that character. It got the part because he actually reminds me a little bit of Jim Carrey, the way that he plays it. But he got it because he came in and did the scene in a comedic way, it was written for seriously. Like I guess the police come to the house, like Charlie gets the police to come to the Dandridge's house to check it out because he's saying the prostitutes are missing, and then he comes in there, and then and they play it very light,
Yeah.
like the Billy character. He's because it's during the day when the Dandridge is in his coffin, but he plays it very light and very joking, and they're kind of like making fun of Charlie about him like thinking there's a vampire in there and stuff. So it's pretty funny performance, really.
It yes, it is. I was looking for the guy who played him. Oh my god, I can't think of his name now.
Art Evans, the cop.
No, the
Art
Billy.
Evans, right? Oh, Billy.
Yeah.
Um, is it Jonathan Stark, who was also in House 2.
House.
You ever seen
House
House
2,
2?
second
Yeah,
story. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I was trying to think of is House 2. I was like, dude, he's hilarious in House 2. His looks and his
Yeah,
mannerisms
yeah,
are freaking just he pulls them out of his ass and they're so great. So rewatching this, I don't know if I noticed that when I was watching it so many times as a kid. And he
yeah.
was also the character in House 2 until recently. I was like, oh shit, he's in House 2 because I've seen that way too many times too. That's not scary in the least bit. That one's just a fun freaking movie from when it came out. So that's how I feel about that whole thing.
Yeah, he's funny in that though. He's got second build in that one. But this film though is does have some scary parts. I think it makes you care about the characters enough to make it, even though it is some comedy in there, it doesn't go too far with it, and so it becomes, especially the last part of it is pretty scary in some of the scenes.
So I was going to ask you that. I never, growing up with this movie, I never really found it scary. I always thought it was a cool ass movie. I found Creepshow
Right?
to be a scarier movie
Yeah.
because I saw
Uh,
them in the same day. There's a couple things in my childhood that I will never forget. It's watching this movie and Creepshow in the same freaking day, and watching the David Cronenberg's The Fly and Aliens in the same day. Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
they're
It's
so
good.
different and they're
It's a good
jarring.
double bill. Yeah.
Yeah, and they just kind of stuck with me my entire life. So with this movie's always been just a very cool and fun movie. And for someone who doesn't like vampire movies, I'm not a big vampire film man. I always tell people
Yeah.
that. I don't know if I became that way because there was way too many vampire movies between the 80s and the 2000s and 20s that they just dull me. It has to be
Yeah.
something,
No. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, it has to
I,
nowadays. It has to be like Let the Right One In or 30 Days of Night, something that really jars me that make it really interesting for me.
well, I think though with this one that it, yeah, it was weird because this one came out in '85 where the slashers were really the big thing. And so they did this the way that they did it worked really well because they kind of brought that kind of almost a gothic sensibility. By the way, Peter Vincent it's kind of like Vincent Price or Peter Cushing. It's
Mhm.
kind of that type of character. That's what he's named after. But they brought back that type of character and trying to bring back the idea or the feel for those old type of films while bringing it into almost a little not necessarily slashery, but it is kind of like the special effects are significantly updated
Mm.
compared to like the previous films before this, and then. I guess like you're getting to ask me about why I thought it was scary. I don't know if it ever did really scare me. I guess, but I did find it was kind of I don't know. I guess you're probably right. Is more fun. That last part is a lot of fun when they go to the house and
Uh-huh.
they fight the vampires, and that's such a great sequence. So the last 30 minutes of the film, it's so that's a lot of but I don't know. Maybe like when he comes into his bedroom, I mean, that's pretty scary. But I think because it takes it serious enough. think because I think it's not scary, but it takes it serious enough that you're not taking it as a joke.
So growing up with this film, I feel a lot. I feel like this film is the tone and stuff is very similar to how my reaction was for Gremlins, the first one, which is
Mm,
really dark. But I saw that at the theater as a kid, and I
yeah,
always thought that was funny. I never saw the
right.
movie as being a very dark film as a kid. That's the reason why I never saw this film as being a very horrifying film. I always just enjoyed the fuck out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
know
think
that there are a lot of people who just thought Gremlins is the scariest movie they ever saw when they were a kid, and I never had that reaction to Gremlins.
right. Yeah, I always liked Gremlins too. I wasn't scared of it. I remember like the film that scared me that I wasn't expecting to be scared by, and I was a big Star Wars fan, and I went when I was a kid. I went to see Return of the Jedi in the theater, and I had all the toys. I had like Jabba and all of
Same
them.
here.
But see that first 30 minutes in Jabba's palace, that was scary. I couldn't even look at the screen until that was over. But the way it's so dark and unexpected in comparison to like you got all the toys and you're playing with them, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, these guys are pretty fucking intense, you know?
Well, I saw Return of the Jedi as a kid too at the theater, but I was not a Star Wars fan.
Yeah,
My older brother, was the Star Wars fan. I hadn't even seen Part Two. I had never seen Empire Strikes Back until years after Return of the Jedi came out. I saw the first one because it was on TV like all the damn time.
yeah.
But we saw Return of the Jedi because my brother was a huge fan, and I'm like, "Oh, that's the coolest movie ever!" And then my brother had to tell me it's Part Three.
Yeah.
So I, so
Yeah.
for the longest time, Return of the Jedi was like the best one out of all of them. Like
Yeah.
I grew up for a long time thinking Return of the Jedi was better, one of the best movies ever made. Uh,
Right, right. I think a lot of people I kind of like still like it a lot. I rate it pretty high in the Star Wars, even though most people would like the other ones better. But because I think it probably was the first one I actually saw. But I think I saw the first one, but not the second one for a long time.
yeah,
But I knew about it. I knew the story because I had the books. I was read the books and had all the toys and everything, you know. But
I had He-Man toys. My brother had
yeah,
the Star Wars toys. I had He-Man and Transformers.
yeah, yeah. I had like GI Joe and Star Wars, so I knew about all that. I had a little bit of He-Man, but not much. I think I had a few of them. You know, it's had some lions. I think I had a lion, like a green one.
Oh Jesus! And that's how we diverse from the
Yeah,
Fright Night. We go to Star Wars.
yeah.
I don't think we've ever done that before. Gone to Star Wars.
Nah. Well, yeah, Star Wars it's kind of a lot different now than it used to be, but it was something back then.
And
The
that's the thing.
yeah,
The '80s, these movies affected us as kids, and we grew up watching them over and over again. I mean, like I
yeah,
said, I've watched Fright Night more times than most. I think Lost Boys is literally the only other vampire movie I've watched as much as I've seen Fright Night.
yeah.
These
I like the Lost Boys a lot. It's a really great film.
I grew up watching. I saw that one at
Yeah,
the theater because of my brother as well.
right.
My brother was all into this stuff. He
Yeah,
would make us all go to the movies to see these films, and we go as a family to go see all these films that he wanted to see. So that's how I saw a lot of these films. But I thought they were the coolest two vampire movies, and I saw them a billion times. Literally,
yeah,
I saw both of them way more than I ever should have as a kid. But we didn't have streaming services, so we didn't watch it on
right.
HBO because HBO would play the same damn movie 20 times.
Yeah.
And
I'd record it on VHS when it was on and then watch it again
yeah,
later. You know, I'd do that
no,
all the time.
we didn't have streaming services. I mean, I had Fright Night on recorded on VHS, like I had Creep Show and Lost Boys, and
Yeah.
actually, I think my father bought the Lost Boys on VHS. We wore
Uh,
it out though.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But that's what we did back then. It's kind of a shame that people don't do that anymore because of physical media and all the different fucking streaming services out there now. I don't know how this film now rates with audiences, especially considering the remake, which I actually really did enjoy the remake. So
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's a good question of whether or not like it's so they got like the old technology in this, which is which when you're watching it, like not it doesn't appear that much, but you definitely a good thing about film in this era, you don't have the cell phone stuff, which is kind of now you almost always have to have it, which is unless what kids today will like a movie that's set in 1985, but not one that's necessarily made in 1985. You know, because I guess because it's a sense of like the way, just like when we watch films from the 70s, like the pacing is just a lot different than what they're used to.
It's an
I mean,
interesting question. I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely because considering that Stranger Things is one of the most popular television shows out there and
yeah,
one of the most heavily merchandised shows, and that revels in the '80s. And there's always tons and tons of '80s themed movies, horror movies, especially being done nowadays that become really freaking popular.
right, yeah, and it's like the peak. I think kids today want to be in the 80s, but when they watch an 80s movie, it's just like this is old. You know? Like those kids don't look like they're 80s kids. This is like 70s kids, you know?
Oh my god! Well, yes, you know what? With this film and most of Tom Holland's film, director Tom Holland's films, because I think that his the Child's Play and I think Psycho 2.
So Psycho 2, he wrote Psycho 2.
Yeah, he wrote Psycho 2. The way those are written, they work really well. I'm a little surprised that he still doesn't do films as much as he used to. He's still selling. He's
Yeah,
gone off to other things. Like I said,
right.
the sequel to this,
Yeah.
you know,
In comic book form though, right? Is that what?
comic book form.
Yeah,
In comic book form,
yeah,
everything's being revisited in comic
yeah.
book.
I guess yeah. It was like the last film he made is 2017, but there's a big lull between that and the 2017 film.
Yeah, I think there was like an anthology film that he did.
Yeah, yeah. After that, or you know what's weird is like you look at his filmography, and everything that he did was like in a short time span. The stuff that you know,
Yeah.
like really he started directing with Fright Night, and then he did Child's Play, The Temp, and then Thinner, and he also did that the Stephen King series of Langoliers. But all that was in about a 10-year time span, you know.
Mhm. I forgot he did the temp.
Yeah, yeah,
That one's not talked about at all anymore. That was a
yeah.
forgotten movie. I see.
I just got a copy of it on Blu-ray recently. I haven't rewatched it though. I think I saw it once. I think that came on Showtime or something like that.
Oh shit! I remember when that came out at the theater. I didn't see
Yeah,
it at the theater, but
yeah,
that would not have been a horror film or suspense thriller film I would have seen at the theater. That came out at the time, a single white female type, where all those.
yeah, yeah.
I remember it. I just haven't seen it in forever.
It
But
was kind of yeah. It was kind of had a very much like single white females. Yeah,
Tom Holland, I assumed that he would his career would have been more expansive, considering that he helped start the Child's Play franchise and did Fright Night, and he
yeah.
wrote Psycho 2, which is considered one of the better sequels of any franchise out there. Is you know,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think he did. You know, from the movies I've seen of his, which I've seen most of them, if not all of them, but other than the newer one, I mean, I think he did a really solid job on all of them. And stuff happens. Apparently, it's weird when you look at directors in this time period. A lot of them just like kind of stop working on it, or they go on to something else. He started as a writer, so I guess writing is probably more in his wheelhouse. He probably prefers to do that, or maybe something happened behind the scenes that his offers just dried up all of a sudden. Or I know films like some of his later films, like Thinner and the miniseries of Langoliers, aren't really considered. Like most people, I don't think Thinner did very good, and Langoliers was not really well received, mostly because of the special effects. But
yeah, you're right about both those. I saw Thinner at the theater, but it was
yeah,
not. It didn't like set the box office on fire, and the Langoliers got marred
yeah.
because of the visual effects. So,
That yeah, but I actually like Thinner. But it is kind of a hard movie to watch. And it's interesting about that. He actually wanted John Candy to play that character originally. He offered it to him, but he turned it down. That would have been cool. That would have been cool.
that would have been hard for John Candy
Yeah,
to Thinner part.
yeah. But what he said, he actually sent a letter or something to John Candy, and he said he's like, "This might save your life doing this part," you know. So he probably didn't think that was a very cool thing for him to say. He's probably like, "Fuck you," you know.
Well,
but
unfortunately,
yeah,
John Candy did pass away, which is also kind of hard because I know a lot of people nowadays who don't even know who the fuck John Candy is.
right. It was around that time period, and he may have saved his life had he taken the movie, maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah, but it makes more sense to get somebody a little thinner for that film and then make him big. They had to put the fat suit on the guy, which
Makeup looks
and,
great. I will
yeah,
not. I think, with the exception of his Langoliers, the makeup looks great in all of his movies. So
yeah. Well, the make it's just those early computer special effects. I do like the Langolier story. It's kind of an interesting cast in that with Bronson Pinchot and David Morse in it. That was it. But yeah, I don't, a lot of people really hate that Langoliers. I've heard a lot of people don't like it. You know.
well, that's why Tom Holland has Child's Play
Yeah,
and the Fright Night to fall back on.
yeah,
Like if for anyone listening out there, if you're a big fan of Fright Night, they recently reissued the novelization for it. Uh, I think it's an original graphic novel, not graphic novel, but novelization. I don't think it was originally released when the movie was released, because that seems to be the popular thing now, is doing novelizations of classic movies is a really popular thing with some publishers now. It's so crazy. I didn't think that was
yeah,
ever going to be a thing, but they're doing novelizations of these cult classic movies that you couldn't ever get before. But also to mention the fact that Tom Holland is trying to keep the franchise alive after
right.
the remake and the really, really, really bad sequel to that remake.
Yeah, I didn't see the sequel to the remake, but I was reading about it, and apparently they just remade it again, like a fourth time. Yeah, from what I read about it, it's just like, okay, we're just gonna do it again. You know,
Yeah, it's pretty bad, and it has bad acting. It's badly directed. I mean, at least a remake with Colin Farrell and I can't remember the actor's name.
David Tennant was in it. It was a pretty
Anton
solid
Yelchin.
cast. Yeah,
Anton
yeah, that's
Yelchin.
right. It's
Yeah.
a solid cast. Unfortunately, he died as well. He got ran over by his own Jeep.
Like
Um, yeah, that's
yeah, it was a
awful.
really good film. They actually improved upon some things and made it more modern, and they did it a really good way. But in my opinion, this '80s version, despite the fact that the actors are not really teenagers,
Yeah,
still holds up really well for me. I still find this an enthralling and entertaining joyride from beginning to end. And because I can now, as an older person, appreciate the dance sequence, because I used to hate it. I don't know why.
yeah,
I think it did for me as a kid. It just slowed everything down with the
yeah.
romantic seduction part. But as a grown up,
Right.
I'm like, oh, it needs to be there. It definitely it's
Yeah.
fun as shit watching him seduce her, them on the dance floor. Yeah, it has to. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
It
has
looks great too. Yeah, it's a great scene, and the acting's really good in it.
to.
It's like that's the sort of thing I remember from even like a kid when you watch was it those Disney movies when they just stopped the movie to sing. It kind of reminded me of that when the first time I saw it. It's like it's like let's just stop the movie so we could dance for a few minutes here.
Oh my god, you could be right. I don't. I see. I can't put myself back into the '80s when I saw this film as many times as I did, and
Yeah,
try to figure out why I hated that scene so much.
yeah.
But
I'm pretty sure I fast forwarded through the scene a few times. I'm almost positive I have. I was like, okay, this scene again. Fast forward. Okay.
Jesus, I may have done that myself.
Yeah.
But well, that's the thing about this movie. To be honest with you, as old as I am now, and as many vampire films as I've seen, and people who have revitalized the genre, revisited it, come up with new ways to tell an old story, try to make it so that nothing in the old version of Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula, is relevant for modern day vampires. This one still extremely holds up well for me. Because it's such a traditional vampire story. You have the Dracula type character who's seducing his victims before he kills them and or turns them. Then you have the boy next door, the boy who cried wolf, angle,
Yeah.
and then you have all the sexual themes in here. I was like, dude, and it's got
Right.
great visual effects. I was like,
Right.
makeup and visual effects. So I was like, I think the movie still holds up extremely well. I think it does.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, to me, it's like, when I was younger, even probably now, that last 30 minutes is just great, and
Mhm.
just the special effects, and when there's just the melting effects and things of that nature. They look, and Evil Ed's like vampire like transformation into the wolf and all that. All that stuff looks really great. And I think too, what holds it together more than anything is the characters, the way that they're written, and the performances. More like, yeah, it's probably a combination of both, but they are written in a way to make you connect with them,
Mhm.
and even like, really all the characters, even the vampire is written pretty good.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to be a seductive?
Yeah.
Oh, seductive and charming. That's what Amy says about him when she first meets him. He's very charming. That's what he is.
Yeah. It's pretty hilarious too when he eats fruit. Like he's got a big like
Thank
bowl of
you.
fruit, and he and like the other guy throws him an apple. And he comes down the stairs, throws him an apple. Him coming down the stairs is pretty awesome. It happens several times when he
Yep.
comes down the stairs.
Yeah.
He's got
And
the
but you,
swagger going.
yes, because he's charming. He's
Yeah.
suave.
Right.
But
Right.
which is also in one of the great things in the nightclub scene because he's wearing this. When he kills Evil Ed, he's wearing this dark trench coat type thing and all that. But when you see him walk into the nightclub, he's all dressed down like he belongs in the nightclub, like he's a
Right.
strong character. Uh,
Yeah.
but I do,
Apparently, like in the director's commentary, like Chris Sarandon is talking with the director, and he's like said he kept that wardrobe and wore it around, that one that he comes into the nightclub with. So he's like, I wore that thing out eventually.
but you bring up something that I didn't notice until I watched it. And you're right. Every time we see Jerry Dandridge's character, he's eating fruit. He's eating apples all the time. He's eating fruit that he has to cut up. It's like that. I don't know why exactly, but he's
Yeah,
always eating fruit throughout this entire film. It's a character trait that makes him very interesting. Other than the fact that he's a very suave character, he's always like he's a healthy vampire or something. I don't know.
well,
I just
maybe this. Yeah, I don't. I mean, maybe this particular vampire has to have the natural sugar from the fruit to go with the blood or something.
yeah, it's the only
Maybe it helps. Yeah,
it's odd because
yeah.
the only thing he eats other than people is all this
Yeah.
fruit all the time.
Well, I kind of like the idea of him having to having to have something else, because if you think about it, like a diet as a human, you can't just eat only meat. You have to eat other stuff, and then some people can not eat meat at all, but they still have to have protein and different like, vitamins and things of that nature. Unless they'll get really sick if they don't. So it
Yeah.
makes sense in a way that maybe especially that's the one thing they change about this vampire. They add the fruit in. It's
But
that's their own. That's their own.
I do want to say one thing that does not follow traditional vampire rules, because Peter Vincent actually makes comment of it, which is he thinks that Billy is just a normal human, so a gun will kill him, but that his
Yeah,
gun never kills him. He has to stake him through the heart as well before he does his body melt, which is really cool sequence
yeah,
because you're not
right,
expecting
yeah, yeah.
at all.
That's yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly what to make of that because I don't know. I mean, but it definitely is unexpected because you think that he's a human. He just shoots him and you think he's dead and he comes back. But maybe maybe that's it. Maybe in order for him to have the vampire power, he has to die first, and then after that, he's got the vampire powers.
Who knows? Well, it'd be like the more recent movie Renfield, where Renfield has powers only because Nicholas's Cage Dracula allows him to have these powers that he can get.
Right. Yeah, that's hilarious. That's such a pretty good vampire movie. They've
Yeah,
made some pretty good ones recently, like that. And the Nosferatu remake was pretty good.
I still have to see that. I've not seen it. I've just seen like the Abigail and the
Yeah,
Renfield. and
Yeah,
the
I liked
last
Abigail
voyage
too.
of the Demeter. And as we say these movies, vampires never seem to go out of style
Yeah,
because all four of those movies are completely different from each other.
right.
Um,
I think all of them are solid too. I guess like when you say like that you got tired of vampire films, that I guess I could see I got tired of some of the vampire stuff about when Twilight came out. They kind of like got real ridiculous with it a little bit for a little while. But I think there's always kind of a place for these for gothic type of storytelling, I would hope. And you give it a little bit of space between it. And if it's done a certain way, I, I don't know. I mean,
it's troubling.
yeah,
Vampires were always the go-to for the longest time, and that's why you had shows like True Blood, Vampire Diaries, all
yeah,
out at the same time, and they
right.
in Twilight was going strong, and all the other vampire stuff that was out. They've
I
always
think, yeah,
go to. There's a lot of them out there. There's just a ton of vampire shows and movies.
right. I think it's, yeah. It's like the, yeah. It's the shows though, I think that kind of calls it the kind of wear out. It's kind of like the zombies with Walking Dead. It's like after for a while, it's like I cannot watch any more zombies. I could probably handle it better now, but I think the shows just kind of for me anyway. Like with that all those vampire shows, which only one of those I watched was True Blood. I did like that, but the other ones were I kind of watched some of them, some of the episodes or whatever, but not the whole thing. It kind of got a little much for me after a while.
That was when I wasn't watching any of the I never saw any of those shows. I was like avoiding vampires for the longest time. I was not into them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone it wasn't until 30 Days a Night, which was based on a comic book, that I really got
Well,
back.
the interesting thing about
So,
yeah.
but all
So you
right.
like that one pretty good.
I did, but
I
I was
haven't
also
seen that one in a long time.
what was that?
I think I need to rewatch that again. Something was annoying me about it is, and I think this is just my thinking about you got these people. All they got to do, they keep freaking out. But if you think about a group of people being in a small place like that, they're probably going to freak out. But I'm just thinking along the lines of, say, people in the Holocaust having to hide up in attics,
Mhm.
and they hid up there for long periods of time, and you think under, I mean, some people just going to freak out. The movie's going to stall if they don't freak out and then get killed. But they could have hidden. I guess that was kind of what was annoying me about it. But I think I just need to adjust my point of view on that and just think some people just can't handle it. So like in real life, like some people are just not gonna like handle like you having to stay in a room and not not just be quiet for like a long time.
Oh, that's hilarious, especially considering that the characters are more or less cut off from the rest of the world for such a long period of time, when they have 30 days straight of night. That they can't handle a little cabin fever.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. All right, Dave.
Right. Yeah. I don't know, but
Do you have any other thoughts about Fright Night?
well,
None.
just a couple of things I wanted to point out
Okay.
was the films on the TV. So they got the Peter Vincent film they showed earlier, but then there's two other films. There might be a third one. They have Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things and Scars of Dracula with Christopher Lee in it.
Scars of Dracula. That's what it
So
was.
that it's I thought it was kind of a nice touch where they in these older movies yeah, 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 Scars of Dracula. Yeah, I like that. That's a good touch though in films of this era where you see people watching TV, which they did do, and you're able to add in these extra little touches about that sort of thing.
Well, it's a lot better than just putting Night of the Living Dead on there because it's in the public domain, which everyone does nowadays because they need some old movie to put in there, but they only want to put something that's in the public domain. Ugh. I'm so annoyed at movies that just put Night of the Living Dead on all the time.
Right.
It's
Well,
kind of
apparently there's yeah.
So
Right. But that's what everybody watches all the time, though, isn't it? It's just
yeah, everyone's sitting around watching a 1968 version of Night of the Living Dead. Yeah, that's great.
yeah,
Oh shit.
yeah.
So, any final thoughts about Fright Night from you?
Well, I guess that's all I got right now. Let's think of something else.
I'll let you save those until we talk about Fright Night Part Two. Then, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Before we get to rating the movie, I do want to say that this is one of my, as a host of this show, I don't always say some of the films that I think are absolute must watches. But the thing is, I grew up in the '80s, and I'm not a vampire lover. So the few films that I do recommend people watch, I hope that you seek out and watch them. With this movie, I think this is one of the best examples of a traditional vampire film, which is not always a traditional film of the '80s. Uh, Dave is right in that the '80s were inundated with lots of slasher films. And even though you could see Jerry Danders as like a serial killer, especially the way he's presented by the news programs on TV, the fact that he's a charming vampire makes it a much more interesting film. And it has amazing performances all throughout by the entire cast, and the visual effects are amazing. And I think this is a highlight of director Tom Holland's career, one of the best films he's ever directed. So, with that, let's go ahead and rate the film. Normally rate the films on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 5 being excellent. Where on that scale would you put this, Dave?
I think I put it at a pretty solid 4 for this film.
Okay,
Like for all the reasons you just said. Yeah, I think it's a solid 4 for it. And I think that the one thing we didn't talk about is the pop culture that they incorporate into this. There's a lot of, it may not seem like it, but there's a lot of vampire pop culture, like Bela Lugosi, and even when they go into like Roddy McDowall's Peter Vince's house, they got all the props around from different stuff, you know. So it's just a nice little touch they put into the film. But how about you? What would you rate it?
I'm going to rate this a little higher. I would rate it at 4.5. I don't think this is. I absolutely love this film. Do not get me wrong. I absolutely love this film, and every time I watch it, I now I see something different that I didn't see before. But I grew up on this film, so I grew up on this film, seeing it a billion times. So it would almost get a 5, except for the fact that I think Tom Holland excels with his directing of Child's Play, which I think is a superior film. I love Night, but Child's Play I think is a superior film, and I would rate Child's Play a 5. But this one's 4.5. Even his Psycho 2 script, the Psycho 2, that's a really smart fucking movie. I put up there as high regards as well. And this is a film I hope people, if you've never seen this film, it's a shame. You should definitely go out there and watch this film. From my understanding, it's actually all my horror friends have all seen this movie. So the only people I can think of who may have never seen this movie are people who are too young, way too young, who were probably born in the 2000s, who have no clue about this movie except for the Colin Farrell version. And I do have horror friends horror friends that are like that, who just having gone back to the 80s to watch a lot of the stuff that I grew up on, which is a shame, because of the streaming services nowadays. There's not enough time for people to pick and choose the older movies to watch. They're trying to picking and choosing the newer films to watch, which is why so many of my friends have seen the Colin Farrell remake and not seen the original. But I hope,
right, yeah, the way they just throw out new content now, it just doesn't stop. You know, just
it doesn't
24 hours, just new stuff.
It doesn't stop, and unfortunately, a lot, before streaming services, audiences could still go to video stores and rent these things and see the posters and see the box covers and say, "Ooh, that looks like an interesting movie. Let me pick that one up." Or the video store clerks would tell them, "You should definitely see that movie. Don't watch that movie, but watch Fright Night because that's a superior movie." We don't have that anymore. What we have is social media, and social media doesn't always pick up on those older things. They're always about the now, the now, the now, the new, the now. With that,
this movie does have a pretty impressive 4K release of it.
It does. Oh, excellent.
So it does have a pretty impressive 4K release for anybody. Yeah, it's a 3-disc release. It has a 4K and a Blu-ray, and it has a lot of special features with it.
Who put it out, by the way?
Yeah, so it's pretty impressive to have 3 discs like that.
Oh, okay.
It's a still book. It's not like whoever the original distributor was. I can't remember who it was. It's not well, maybe now it's Columbia Pictures. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I will say this. Tom.
But it's an impressive release.
Okay. Well, I'll have to look into that one. I do know that if you are a Tom Holland fan, you can find Tom Holland's website. I forget what it is. It's Terror something. I can't. It sucks that I can't remember what it is, considering I bought lots of stuff from his website. But you can go to his personal website, get signed pictures, autographs, special edition DVDs and Blu-rays of his films. I actually did that with Child's Play, a special edition of that's signed and has a different cover of a Blu-ray of the movie. It's actually really nice. He's did that with Fright Night too. So, and I think he's done a lot with Psycho too. I don't think he has the rights to do anything with Thinner or Langoliers because Langoliers is an out-of-print movie. So if you have a copy of that movie, you should probably hold on to it until someone decides that they want to do an upgrade version of it. With that, I want to thank you, Dave, for joining us on Conversations in Horror.
That's a mini-series, that one.
Yeah, the Langoliers, the miniseries. Yeah, I have it. I haven't watched it. It's an old DVD version. I don't think it's ever been ported over to Blu-ray. I know it's out of print. It's not always an easy find, especially now. I think it's getting harder because so many people are dumping their DVDs for Blu-rays and 4K releases. And I don't think it's ever been to a Blu-ray. There's a lot of those TV movies like that have not been upgraded to a Blu-ray because they were shot for TV. So, it's unfortunate, but I want to thank everyone for joining us on the conversation.
They did a Shining one.
Yeah, did he direct The Shining? I thought that was Mick Garris. I could be getting.
I don't think he didn't direct The Shining. No, I didn't say he directed. I'm saying that they did make a Blu-ray of it.
Oh, okay. I was thinking that was a Mick Garris movie because I only saw it once when it aired. I don't remember anything from the Shining miniseries that they put on television. I thought it was good. I just never thought it was better than the Stanley Kubrick one. So I only ever saw it once. So, and I don't own that one. So, but we diversed and we went off to other Stephen King type stuff. But from everyone here at Something Wicked Entertainment, we want to thank you for joining us on the show. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, do that thing you do on your favorite podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, make sure to check out some of our previous episodes because you will have a grand old time checking out some of the stuff we've already talked about, especially some more vampire movies and movies from the 80s. From everyone here at Something Wicked Entertainment, I wish you a pleasant day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.